Right now, a lot of businesses are putting real effort into content. They are posting regularly, creating videos, writing captions, doing everything they are supposed to do. And on the surface, it actually looks right. It feels like things should be working. But then something strange happens. The results don't match the effort. You see views, maybe some likes, sometimes even comments. But no real inquiries, no serious leads, no actual business coming from it. And that is where the confusion begins. Because when you are putting in effort consistently, you expect something to come back. You expect progress. You expect results. But instead, it feels like nothing is really moving. For example, a business may post every single day, stay consistent for weeks, and still not get a single serious inquiry. Another business may create high-quality videos, but those videos don't turn into clients. Now think about your own situation for a moment. Are you creating content regularly but not seeing real results from it? Because if that's happening, then the problem is not just effort, and it's probably not just quality either. So the real question becomes, if everything looks right from the outside, then why is it still not converting? The biggest misunderstanding about content is this. Most people believe that good content automatically brings results. And honestly, that sounds completely logical. Because if something is useful, informative, or valuable, people should respond to it. But here's where things start to break. Because in today's environment, content alone is not enough to influence decisions. And this is something many people don't realize immediately. For example, you might create a very informative video, something that explains everything clearly, and still nothing happens. No inquiry, no follow-up, no real action from the viewer. Now, at this point, most people think something is wrong with the content. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe it's not engaging enough. But that's not always true. Because there are also cases where content looks great. It's well designed, professional, even impressive. And still, it doesn't convert. Now pause and think about your own behavior for a moment. How many times have you watched something useful, understood it completely, and still didn't take any action afterward? Not because it was bad, but simply because you didn't feel the need to act. That is exactly what your audience is doing. So the problem is not that your content is bad. The real problem is good content without direction does not lead to conversion. To understand why content is not converting, you need to understand one simple behavior. People don't take action immediately. And this is something most businesses underestimate. They assume that understanding leads to action, but that is not how people behave. Most of the time, people are not ready yet. They are still exploring, still learning, and still comparing options before making any decision. For example, someone may watch your video, understand your service, and still not contact you. Not because they are not interested, but because they are still thinking. Another person may follow your content for days or even weeks before taking any step. Now think about your own behavior. When you are about to make a decision, do you act instantly or do you take time to feel sure? Most people take time, and that is exactly what your audience is doing. So if your content expects quick action, it will always feel like it is not working. Because the issue is not the content, the issue is timing and readiness. So if content is not converting, what is actually missing? Most people jump to quick conclusions. They think it's quality, or maybe consistency. But the real issue is not that simple. Because in many cases, the content is already good enough. The problem is something deeper. Most content is designed to inform, but not to move. And that difference is critical. Because information alone does not create action. For example, you may explain your service clearly. The viewer understands what you do, but still doesn't feel any urgency to move forward. Another situation is when content teaches something useful, but it stays at a surface level. It never connects to a real problem the viewer is experiencing. Now think about your own behavior. When something simply tells you information, you understand it, and then you move on. But when something makes you realize, this is exactly my problem, and shows you what to do next, That's when you stop and start paying attention. That is the difference. Content that converts does not just inform, it creates movement toward a decision. Content that actually converts works very differently. And this is where most people get it wrong. They focus on creating more content instead of improving how that content actually works. Because not all content is designed to convert. Some content is just meant to inform. Some content is meant to engage. But converting content follows a very specific structure. It builds clarity. It builds trust. And it provides direction. Now, this might sound simple at first, but this is where most of the execution fails. Because clarity is not just explaining your service. It's helping the viewer understand their problem more clearly. Trust is not built instantly. It builds slowly through repetition and consistency. And direction is not just telling people to take action, it's making that action feel natural and obvious. Now think about your own behavior. When something feels confusing, you hesitate. When something feels uncertain, you delay. But when something is clear, and you trust it, and you know exactly what to do next, you move forward. That is how converting content works. It does not force action. It removes hesitation. Now here's something that confuses a lot of people. Even after understanding all of this, many businesses still don't see results. And that creates another level of frustration. Because now it feels like, I understand what's wrong, but it's still not working. But the reason is usually very simple. They understand the idea, but they don't apply it deeply. For example, they continue posting regularly, but the messaging never improves. Or they provide value, but never connect it to their actual offer. So on the surface, it looks like they are doing everything right. But underneath, nothing has really changed. Now think about your own situation. Are you improving your content or just repeating the same effort again and again? Because that is where the real difference comes in. Businesses that refine their content over time start seeing better results, while others keep posting and stay stuck without knowing why. One of the biggest signs that your content is not converting is when there is a gap between views and leads. And at first, it doesn't feel like a problem because you see numbers going up. Views increase, engagement increases, so naturally you assume things are working. But then, nothing actually changes. No inquiries, no serious conversations, no real business coming from it. And this is where things start to feel confusing because it feels like something should be happening, but it isn't. Let me give you a simple situation. Imagine someone watches your content today. They like it, they understand it, they even think this is useful. But then they scroll, they open another video, then another, and within a few minutes, your content is completely gone from their mind. No action, no follow-up, nothing. Now think about your own behavior. How many times have you done the same thing? Consumed something useful, and then moved on without doing anything. That is exactly what your audience is doing. So the goal is not just attention. It is turning attention into trust and then into action. A lot of people believe that if they just give enough value, their content will convert. And honestly, that sounds completely right. Because helping people should lead to results. But here's where things start to break. Value alone does not create action. Because value without direction just becomes information. Let me show you what actually happens. Imagine someone watches your content. They learn something useful. They even think this is actually helpful. At that moment, everything looks perfect. You did your job. They understood it. But then something small happens. They get a notification. They open another video. They scroll for a few seconds. And just like that, your content is gone. Not saved. Not remembered. Not acted upon. Now here's the important part. It wasn't because your content was bad. It's because nothing in that moment told them what to do next. Now think about your own behavior. How many times have you learned something useful and still didn't act on it? Not because it didn't make sense, but because it didn't lead anywhere. That is why value alone is not enough. Value needs direction. Otherwise, it disappears without impact. One thing that most businesses underestimate is how much repetition actually matters, because they expect results too quickly. They post a few times, don't see results, and assume something is wrong. But that's not how trust works. Let me show you what actually happens. Imagine you see someone's content for the first time. You don't know them. You don't trust them. So you scroll, nothing happens. A few days later, you see them again. Now you recognize them, but still you don't act. And then something interrupts your attention. Maybe another video plays. Maybe you switch apps. And again, nothing happens. But then, after seeing them again and again, something changes. Now you stop scrolling. Now you actually watch. Now you start paying attention. And this is where trust begins. Now think about your own behavior. Do you trust something instantly or only after repeated exposure? That is exactly how your audience behaves. So consistency is not just about posting, it is about staying visible long enough for trust to actually build. Another major reason content does not convert is lack of clarity. And this happens more often than people realize. Because what feels clear to you may not be clear to your audience. Let me show you what that actually looks like. Imagine someone watches your content and they feel interested. They like what you are saying. They feel like this might help them. So naturally, they try to understand more. And then one simple thought comes into their mind. What exactly do you do? At that moment, they start looking for the answer. They check your content again. They look at your profile. They try to figure it out. But it's not clear. It's not obvious. It's not simple. And now something changes. That initial interest starts turning into confusion. And confusion quickly turns into frustration. So what do? They don't ask. They don't explore further. They leave, not because they were not interested, but because they were not sure. Now think about your own behavior. When something is clear, you move forward. But when something feels confusing, you step back. That is exactly what your audience does. So clarity is not optional. It is essential for conversion. Even if your content has value, even if it builds trust, even if it is clear, it still needs one final element. And that is guidance. Because people need to know what to do next. And if you don't tell them, they won't act. Let me show you what actually happens. Imagine someone watches your content and they are genuinely interested. They feel like this could help them. They reach the end. And for a moment, they wait. They expect the next step. But nothing is clear. No direction. No action. No guidance. And then something small happens. They hesitate. And that hesitation turns into inaction. They close the video. They move on. And just like that, the opportunity is gone. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know what to do next. Now think about your own experience. When something clearly tells you what to do, you follow it. But when it doesn't, you delay and then forget. That is exactly how your audience behaves. And that is why guidance turns interest into action. And here's where things get even more interesting. This problem is not limited to content. The same issue is now affecting ads as well. Let me show you what that actually looks like. Imagine a business starts running ads. They set everything up. They launch campaigns. They start getting clicks. At first, it feels like things are working. Traffic is coming in. Numbers are moving. But then, something strange happens. No leads. No real inquiries. No conversions. And now confusion starts building. Because from the outside, everything looks fine. But inside the system, nothing is actually working. And this is where most people get stuck. They assume the problem is the ad platform, or the targeting, or the budget. But that is not the real issue. Because just like content, ads also fail when they don't build clarity, trust, and direction. Now think about this. If content is not converting, and ads are also not converting, then the problem is not the platform. It is the system behind it. And that is exactly what we will break down in the next video. At this point, one thing should be clear. The problem is not that content is not working. And that's where most people get it wrong. Because when results don't come, they assume content itself is the issue. But that's not what's actually happening. The real problem is how content is being used. Let me show you what that means. Imagine someone comes across your content for the first time. They don't know you, they don't trust you. So what do? They scroll, nothing happens. A few days later, they see you again. Now they recognize you, but still they don't act, and then something interrupts their attention. They switch apps, they watch something else, and again, nothing happens. But then over time, they keep seeing your content again and again, and slowly something starts changing. Now they stop scrolling, now they start watching, now they start paying attention. And this is where the shift happens. Not in one post, not in one video, but over time. That is how content actually works. Not as a single action, but as a system. So if the problem is the system, then what actually needs to change? Most people think they need better content or more content. And honestly, that feels completely logical. Because when something is not working, doing more of it feels like the right move. But here's where things start to go wrong. Because more content does not fix a broken structure. Let me show you what actually happens. Imagine someone starts following your content. Day 1, they see a post. It makes sense. Day 2, they see something else. Different topic. Day 3, another idea. At first, they try to follow. But then something small happens. They pause. They try to connect everything. But it doesn't fit together. And in that moment, their attention drops. They don't think this is bad. They just stop trying. And once that happens, they stop paying attention completely. Now here's the shift. When content is connected, each piece leads to the next. Now the viewer doesn't have to figure it out. They follow naturally. They understand faster. That is the difference. It's not about more content. It's about content that builds. Now let's make this very simple, because this is where most people get stuck. They understand the idea, but don't see how it actually works in real life. So let's walk through it clearly. Imagine someone discovers your content today. At first, they are just watching. They don't trust you yet. They are just observing, and then something interrupts them. A notification pops up. They switch to another app. And just like that, they leave. Nothing happens. But a few days later, they see your content again. Now they recognize you. This time, they don't scroll immediately. They watch a little longer. They start understanding your message. And for a moment, it feels like things are working. But then something else happens. They get distracted again. Another video plays. And again, they leave. Now here's the important part. Even after leaving, your content is still in their mind. And the next time they see you, they stop. They watch fully. And now something finally shifts. Now they trust you. And once that happens, taking action becomes much easier. That is how a content system actually works. Not in one step, but through repeated exposure and interruptions. Now here's the real reason why most people stay stuck. Even after understanding all of this, they don't change how they execute. They go back to the same pattern. Let me show you what that actually looks like. Imagine someone decides to go to the gym. They feel motivated. They show up regularly. They try different exercises every day. At first, it feels like progress. They feel like they are doing something right. But then something starts to happen. After a few weeks, nothing really changes. And now confusion begins. They start questioning everything. Am I doing something wrong? Is this even working? And because they don't see results, they start changing things again. New exercises, different routines, hoping something finally works. But again, nothing really improves. And slowly, that motivation starts dropping. Now here's the important part. The problem was never the gym. It was the lack of structure. Because effort without direction does not create results. Now bring this back to content. Most people are doing the same thing. Posting regularly. Trying different ideas. but without a system. And that's why nothing converts. Content works the same way. Without structure, it does not produce results. So if your content is not converting, even if it looks good, now you know why. It's not just about effort. It's not just about quality. It's about the system behind it. Let me leave you with one simple thought. Imagine you keep creating content, posting regularly, trying different ideas, but nothing is really connected. Every post stands on its own. At first, it feels like you're doing the right thing. You're consistent. You're putting in effort. But over time, something starts to feel off. Nothing builds. And when nothing builds, nothing converts. And that's where most people get stuck. They keep creating, they keep trying, but they never see real results. And slowly, that frustration starts growing. Now here's the shift. When you fix the system, everything starts connecting. Your content becomes clearer. Your audience understands faster. And then something important happens. They stop just watching and start paying attention. And from there, they start taking action. That is where real results begin. And once you reach that point, content no longer feels like effort. It starts working for you. And in the next video, we'll break down how this same problem is affecting your ads and what you need to change to finally make them work.